Shalom Aleichem, everybody. It is Erev Shabbos, Parshat Korach. We just finished off a phenomenal year in Yeshiva. A great year, a tremendous year of growth in every aspect. I wanted to share with everyone a very quick Dvar Torah on Korach. There's an interesting Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. The Mishnah says there were certain things that were created that we're going to need in the future that were created Bein Hashmoshos on the first week of creation. Friday, Bein Hashmoshos into Shabbos, 10 special creations. And the first on the list in the Parakeh of Pirkei Avos is the Pi Ha'aretz. The Pi Ha'aretz, the mouth of the earth. What does this mean, the mouth of the earth? What was created? What mouth of the earth? Of course, that's the mouth of the earth that swallowed Korach va'adaso. And the question is obvious. Why was it so necessary that the Pirkei Avos, the Mishnah, has to tell us it was a foreshadowing that indeed on Erev Shabbos Bein Hashmoshos, the Pi Ha'aretz had to be created? What exactly is the idea that Chazal are trying to convey? So I believe the answer is as follows, is that really, when you think about what Korach represents the concept of machlokas. And we know the Mishnah further tells us in Pirkei Avos, they have machlokas that are Shem Shamayim, machlokas Hil and Shammai. And then you have the machlokas that Shalol Shem Shamayim, that's represented by Korach va'adaso, a machlokas Shalol L'Shem Shamayim. Sometimes machlokas is proper. More often than not, machlokas has no place. It's divisive, has a tremendous deleterious effect on relationships, on society. Machlokas is a terrible thing. Chazal tell us that machlokas entered into the world on the second day of creation. On the second day of creation, we're told by Yavdel, Hashem separated Beimayim me'al rakia. There was a separation between the upper waters and the lower waters. That was the introduction of machlokas into the world. Indeed, when you take a look at every single day of creation, there was a sense of vayavdel. Vayavdel ben ha'or ben ha'choshech. There was a separation of aretz and yam. But only when it comes to the second day do we say that's machlokas. Why is that? Because when it comes to, for example, or v'choshech, the first day of creation, those are two separate and distinct concepts. Those are two separate and distinct pieces of matter. Or and choshech, two separate ideas. They're meant to be separate. They're meant to be divided. When it comes to yam and yabasha, meant to be divided. These are two separate things. But when we're talking about separating yam mi'al rakia and yam mitachas rakia, the upper waters, the lower waters, well, the waters should be together. The water is one. And if it's one, it should be joined. When we have to go ahead and separate that which is one, we make that differentiation between that which should be echad, and we divide it. So that's what we call machlokas. That's the kind of pirud, the kind of disjunction that is a very bad thing. And that's really what was introduced into the second day of creation. That's why Rabbeinu Bachai says that's when Gehenim was produced. The Shamayim, the upper celestial beings, that's when the Yom Sheni, which is the day of Shinui, the day of differentiation, says Rabbeinu Bachai, that's what you find on day 2. And indeed, if you study the creation story, as we've mentioned already in the past, there is a story here of every day has a pair. Every day links into another day. The first day is linked to the fourth day, or V'choshek, day 1, and the celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, the stars is day 4. Day 2 is Yam and Shamayim and the water, and Shamayim. And again, that parallels the animals that dwell in the Shamayim and the land. That's the water. That's the fish and the ophos. And finally, day 3 as well, we have the aretz and the animal creatures on day 6. There's one day that really stands alone. It stands alone in the days of creation. And Shabbos, too, is a day of creation, the day when menucha is entered into the world, the day when there's a certain tranquility. You see, when it comes to the first 6 days of creation, sheishes yemei hama'aseh, there is on some level a discord. There is on some level fractionalization, everyday differentiation, everyday Mavdil, Havdalah, and so forth. Shabbos has no pair. Shabbos has nothing else. Shabbos is a day of echad, of oneness, of unity. And indeed, the whole discord of creation is really reconciled and rectified by Shabbos. Shabbos, when we go ahead and take, for example, the physical of the Sheish Tnei Masa, and we blend it and join it with the spiritual of Shabbos Kodesh. So that's the echad, that is Shabbos, has no pair. Shabbos is a day of total uniformity, of universality, a day where we take all our disparate parts and we become one. That's perhaps the reason that when it comes to the days, the Shabbos, the high point of Shabbos, the pinnacle of Shabbos is Shalosh Shudas. And the Ramah tells us, no, you don't have to have Lechem Mishnah Shalosh Shudas. One Lechem is sufficient, that sense of Achdus that is achieved as Shabbos towards when we hit the climax of Shabbos. V'yanuchu Vam is what we say when it comes to Shabbos Mincha, again reflecting this sense of oneness, this sense of Achdus, whereas us, Neshama, Guf, all is one with Shechina. That's really what Shabbos represents. Indeed, the whole Bria moves towards this sense of Adam and Chava, two separate individuals, coming together at the end of the creation story, at the end of day 6, leading into day 7, V'hoyu lebasar echad, coming together as one. Shabbos represents that sense of unity. And perhaps one can suggest that's exactly why that the antidote to Korach and the machlokas of Korach had to be built into the Bria before the onset of Shabbos. We had to have the Pi Ha'aretz created before the beginning of Shabbos, at Bein HaShmosot, at that point, because you couldn't have a Shabbos with this, if you will, potential for machlokas in the world. The cure, the refuah for Korach and Adaso had to already pre-exist the first Shabbos. It had to be in place the first Shabbos. Hence, the Mishnah tells us that the Pi Ha'aretz was created at that time. Perhaps that's the reason, because you cannot have this phenomenon of machlokus without its cure when you have the creation of Shabbos, and Shabbos is the exact antithesis of that concept. As we go ahead, we just finished our banquet. Most of you experienced the banquet in your day, the rooftop and so forth. I just want to share with you that it's a phenomenal experience. Every year, I never get tired of it. The special feeling of a year that's concluded, a year of growth, of development, and hearing the boys express that, really phenomenal thing. It was a tremendous year of growth. And if I think about what the year in Yeshiva, year or two in Yeshiva really represent, is that building that, what I'll call decompartmentalizing our lives. We usually live very compartmentalized lives. We have our Kodesh and Chol. In fact, I was speaking a couple of days ago with a boy who's in college now, and he expressed this disjunction, this, what I'll call dissonance, that he has his Kodesh and his Chol, and they're in conflict. They're in conflict a lot. And how he wants to go and live his life. I think the vision, the mission, and the goal, certainly what we try and achieve in Eretz Yisrael, in the year in Israel, is that sense of eliminating the dissonance, that we should live not decompartmentalized lives, compartmentalized lives, but lives that are unified, that are whole, that have no discord, that there's a consistency, that there's no such thing as Kodesh and Chol, that it's all Kodesh. Even the Chol is part of a vision of Kodesh. And then you don't have that machlokas, you don't have that purity, you don't have that division. In ourselves, we don't have that division, and certainly that's a goal that we all try to achieve. I want to wish everyone a beautiful, beautiful Shabbos.